Okay, so this is the third segment of my rock and roll stories from the 1980s and 90s. And this story is about mainly it's about a party that we played on Indian reservation that was busted. What you see here is a party at an Indian reservation. It's not the one in question. I unfortunately don't have any pictures of the one in question because it was busted. But this is a kind of an example. This is kind of like an outbuilding on an Indian reservation that you can see Jeff sees down there with a guitar. He knew a lot of Indians because he lived in the North County, San Diego County. So he got us a show of note. In the center, lower center, is Joey. He used to sing for a band called Epitaph. Later they became Brickbath and put out some albums. And his sister is above him in the dark. Next to her is a gal named Heather. And next to Joey is a guy named Julian. He's one of the few Indians I knew there. The other photo that I have from this gig that I'm not even going to talk about, I'm just showing you the pictures. There's Jeff playing, and the band's behind him. I'm on the other side of the room. And the girl in the blue, I asked Sherry, that was Joey's sister, hey, what happened to her? I was told probably about a year ago. Oh, she committed suicide years ago. So that was weird. And the guy that's got his hand extended out in the leather jacket, that's Joe. He was at a lot of our shows. He liked the band a lot. First, let's go into the band I was in at the time called Espionage. Little sample. If you want to look up this video, it's Espionage, the Ultra Structure, live at Distillery East, Escondido, California, 91. Here's a sample. The guy with the pink guitar is a guy named Jeff Paremba. He's been playing ever since, so he's doing big things nowadays. I just to promote him for a second here. You can look up Bourbon Ballet. That's the drummer from Doc and Mick Wild Brown formed his own band called Bourbon Ballet, and Jeff was got an audition, and he got the audition for that band. So check out Bourbon Ballet. He plays in that band. He was also in a big cover band, San Diego County, called 619, which they lost their guitar player singer, so they got a new guitar player singer, and now they're 858, I think, just another, whatever, the other area code there. But he's also in 7 Train with the drummer from 24/7 Spies, and he does like various others. He's just involved in a lot of musical projects, and he's never like hit the big time with a band, but he's been at it so many years and done so many smaller time projects that he's practically famous, even though he's not technically a rock star, I guess. I'm not sure how much money he makes. He may be a semi-pro, I'm not sure. Anyway, this is the band that was involved in these the gigs I'm going to talk about. And so the first gig was a show at an Indian reservation, and it was us, a band called Black Diamond, which was Jeff's old band, so it's kind of like a reunion show for them. They opened the show, then it was Espionage, and I think there was another band, but I can't remember who it was. So we drive out to the boonies. I can't remember where this Indian reservation was located, but there's a few reservations out in North County. So it's, private Indian land. You would think it would be okay to have a party and that you wouldn't have to worry about the police coming to bust the activities on basically a semi-autonomous, self-contained nation. But they did, and to set the backdrop for it, we pull up, and there's, first thing I notice is there's Indians walking around with like rifles and shit, and that's what they do on the reservation. But it was kind of threw me off a little bit, and I ain't got nothing against guns, but I thought it was just weird, that instead of having police or security, that they just take matters in their own hands. And I guess the guns were to make sure everybody knew that, you were in their territory, and you should behave yourself. That's the message I took from it. But there was a big dirt field, and we set up. I think they had some like temporary staging. It was kind of made out of pallets and plywood. And so I set up my 4 Marshall cabinets, my 2 bass heads. I had an older Gallion Kruger and a PB Mark III 300 watt bass amp, one of those kind of PB amps that Steve Harris used to have. And so Black Diamond was playing, and there was like a mosh pit, and there was getting to be there's probably 100 people there before we were starting to go on. I think it swelled up to a couple hundred people are out in this dirt field, and we were setting up, and we had our amps on, and we were doing some tuning up, and we were getting ready to play, and there was a lot of tension in the audience because we were going to be playing some real heavy thrash there, and the kind of music fans that were there, they were into that heavier stuff, and they were really, their mouths were watering in anticipation of the pit that was going to form. And so, well, okay, let's start the set. Drummer starts the 4 count, and then we're told to stop. It's like, what? Oh, all of a sudden, cops in our face. Where'd these cops come from? And they tell us, don't play a note, or we're going to confiscate your gear. And we're like, okay. Turn our amps off. And, what the hell kind of... where'd these guys come from? What are they doing here? And why are they telling us to turn off our amps? It wasn't like, it was just like... We didn't just like get in our car and just drive up there. No, we had to load a crap load of stuff into a van and several cars, and it wasn't like it was just down the road. It was way out in the boonies. So it was quite an effort, and it was not just the band's part, but the hosts and the work that went into the stage. It was kind of it was all privately run, but it was a big thing to be doing, just to have some cops come in and shut it down. And so while we're there, they threaten us with confiscating our gear. I don't even know where they got the authority to do that, but we weren't going to risk it. The last thing we needed was our gear in impound and no money to get it out and never see it again. So we put our basses away and we loaded up our gear. In between that, I guess the cops talked to somebody, and it was related to us that the reason it was busted. Oh, and before this happened, they even call out what was called Astria, the sheriff's helicopter back in the this was back in the 90s, so 80s, 90s. I believe this went down at about 1991 or 2, maybe 90 or 91. And so the helicopter's flying over, and I look at the helicopter, I'm all, oh yeah, let's just waste taxpayers' money on a helicopter coming over for no reason. What's it going to do there? What's it going to do? Chase down somebody that's running? Because I don't know. Why would you run? We're just, nobody was doing anything wrong there. But for whatever reason, and I remember the searchlight on the helicopter sweeping the audience and the the band, and I looked out and there's about 200 or so hands in the air flipping this helicopter. The bird kind of thought that was funny, and that's what we all thought of it, because we were there to have a good time. Everybody was, and we were going to, and the police, they just couldn't leave it alone. They just had to crack down on our fun, is basically all it was. And so later it was related to us that the reason that they shut down the party was one of the guests earlier, I don't know how much earlier, had left the event, and about a mile and a half down the road, for some reason, lost control of the vehicle, hit a fence post, and that was some property damage. So that's why it was shut down. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, well, let's say there's a concert at the sports arena. I leave and I get into a fender bender. Maybe I leave early or whatever, and I get into a fender bender. Are they going to go to the sports arena and shut the entire thing down? Or are they just going to deal with me and give me a citation or a DUI or whatever the case may be? I'm just using myself as an example. I never got a DUI, and I never even got a ticket in my life. But just using that as an example, would they do that? Obvious question. The obvious answer is no. So we didn't really understand why they were doing it here. So somebody hit a fence post. Okay, civil matter, or if he's guy's drinking, haul him away. If he deserves a ticket, write him a ticket, and then go home. But no, they had to come up there and bust this party. And so, I think I'm titling this video "Cops versus Musicians," and there really wasn't any. There was no battle to be had. It's like, we had to submit to what they said. Southern California is just how it was back then. And so that was done. The party was done. The fun was over. And it's one of those. I've been to a few places that was busted or things fell through. And I work as a housekeeper today, and I have to wonder, how many of these gigs got canceled that might have made a difference, in what we were doing. So the other story is something called the JAFF Fest. That guitar player right there, his name was Jeff. That's JEFF, and his nickname, I think it was his nickname. The way this fest came about, his nickname was Zeph. So his dad was also a musician, a drummer, and ran a local studio. And so he had the idea to have the JAFF Fest, and so he had some industrial space in a park, and he would, bring a stage in, and we had a couple parties there. And this one party, this is in the heyday of this band, when it would have been beneficial for us to play. We played with, it was us and Epitaph and some other band, and Epitaph got to play, and then the same situation, we get up to play, and the cops show up out of nowhere, even though Jeff's dad had all needed permits from the city to do this. It's kind of the way the cities worked back then, Poway and Escondido. It's almost like they were like, the city elders were evil. They would let you think that you were going to get to do something, and they pretty much only issued you the permit so that they could keep an eye on you, so they knew exactly when to bust you, which is why, if you could help it, you just didn't go through them in the first place. So the cops show up, and they say, go home, and I don't even know the reason that one was shut down. Same situation, we're about ready to play, there's a big crowd there, and party's over. And I remember Jeff's mom was in tears over it. And there was a lot of upset people, and there was no talking to the police. It's just, in California, their word is the law, and the law is the God that you must obey. So, two examples of cops versus musicians, where, of course, the police always win. At least they didn't threaten to confiscate our gear that time. And it's just kind of weird that, you got a permit and they still crack down on it. Now, I did play some other parties that, went off without a hitch. I guess they were shorter in duration and just didn't get noticed, mainly because they were indoors and because, we didn't seek a permit for them. And those were fun times, I guess. My current band, Death Illuminate, is going to be doing a party, a private house party with some other bands. Apparently this is like a party house. They do this kind of like, they just have shows at this house. It's like a barbecue. Bring a keg in. We're doing that mid-July up in Coeur d'Alene. Unfortunately, they don't want to pay us anything. They did offer us $15 in weed, which I won't be partaking of that. And most of the other guys in the band have jobs that they can't do it anyway, but they want to do it, so I didn't think it was a good idea, but hey, if the guys in the band want to do it, we'll drive my van up there and see how it goes. But we don't expect that one to get busted because they've been, they do it on a regular basis, and they also have the permits. So hopefully that's going to be fun. We'll see. Anyway, that's my story for tonight. Little update. I am working on Death's lack of comprehension, and I learned the songster version, which is not quite correct. And then I got a hold of the isolated bass and drum track, which is a slightly different, and I can tell that I'll be able to get this song. It's probably going to take me 3 weeks of study to get some of the weird stuff that Steve plays. but I'll be able to get it. I probably won't get it 100%, but I do plan to have probably the best cover up because I have access to this isolated track, so it's kind of cool. I'll give you a sample of that. That low note was a G, and on the Songster tabs they have you hitting a C, so just an example of how Songster's tabs are, they're not quite right, but close, you know, horseshoes and hand grenades. Anyway, so that's what I'm up to. That was my story for this segment, and I'll see you guys next time.